All right, so welcome to Things Go Sideways. I'm Kiki L'Italian, and a few months ago, I had a conversation with Brian Kirkland, association leader, sobriety advocate, self-described enthusiastic troublemaker, about what happens when the coping strategies stop working and you have to figure out who you actually are without them. That conversation covered a lot of ground. We talked about burnout, diagnosis, grief, the long road of learning to trust yourself again. We talked about all the things. But here's the thing about sideways stories, they don't end when the interview does. And that's also what makes this episode a little bit different than the others I've recorded so far. Since we last spoke, Brian has been busy. He has launched two newsletters. He has shared original frameworks that are challenging how associations think about leadership and relevance. He's also experienced new loss. And this kind of honest public building in front of other people, that's what public means. It makes you wonder, is this the clarity that's talking? Is this the momentum? Maybe it's both. Maybe it's neither. So this is part two, and we're not doing a recap. We're not doing a follow-up. This is what it sounds like when someone is right in the middle of their next chapter and the ink is still wet. So Brian, with all of that, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I feel like an enthusiastic troublemaker. Like I'm here to just do something completely different. Like we're gonna have a part two,
Yes,
and we're not gonna
yes.
have a recap.
I love the part two idea. I think that this is totally the way we need to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's go ahead. Last time you were here, you named the chapter of your life, this chapter of your life, Pills and Thrills and Belly Aches, Happy Mondays. I actually
Right.
listened to the
I
Happy Mondays
did.
leading into this so that I could like gear up, like get ready for our discussion. But that was just a few months ago. You've launched two newsletters since then. Sorry to say, and my condolences, you lost your cousin Sean. And like I mentioned in the intro up to this, you've also been building these frameworks that are getting people in the association world to sit up and pay attention. And I am impressed by the types of conversations that these are leading to. So does that chapter title still fit, or has the story shifted enough that it needs a new name? What do you think?
I think we're still technically in the thrills, pills, belly aches portion of new things. So yeah, let's stick with that for now.
Yeah. Okay. That's good for me. It works for me if it works for you. So you have these two Substacks running. I'm really impressed by both of them. 501 Booze Free, which you talked about this concept
Hmm.
when we spoke last time, and Ungovernable Context, which we did not speak about last time.
Right.
So for someone who hasn't been following along, how would you describe the difference between these two different projects? And how did you go from announcing one idea to running two production schedules while also keeping a full-time job? So we'll start with the first question, which is, what's the difference between these two things? What are these two projects?
Sure. We'll start with 501 Boost 3. That's probably the easiest one to talk about. We already talked about it in part one. So if you want to, you can go back to part one if you haven't
Yes,
watched it already. How about that? There's your
that's
plug.
perfect. Yes.
So 501 Boost Free, that's an opportunity for me to talk about leadership lessons that I learned as a sober person in the association world. And it was born from the Ignite session that I did at ASAE. I think it was almost 2 years ago now, which I went through about 10 leadership lessons that I learned in 5 minutes. And it's not going to be just a retread of that conversation. It's really we're taking a new look at things. I believe one of my topics so far was how clarity from sobriety is actually it feels like a curse the first when you
Mm,
first get into it. And in a lot of ways, I mean, I would say the first 2 to 3 years of my sobriety, like it almost like a curse at times. Not all the time. There are obviously great moments, but in that post, I really go into how when you start to take away those defense mechanisms and you realize like there are all these things that I just haven't been dealing with. Like that's where it feels like a curse, where all of a sudden you have to like basically not fall back on your old bad habits and instead like deal with BS right there in the moment and
Yeah.
figure it out. It's I didn't write this in the article, but it's something that my therapist has she's refer or they've referred to it as second adolescence, where all of a sudden you're discovering these new things about yourself, like just like when you were a teenager and you're just figuring out this whole new world in front of you. But then the difference is you're in your 40s. You have all these responsibilities. You have to keep on getting a paycheck. And no, a summer job at minimum wage isn't going to cut it for you because you're not a
Yeah.
teenager anymore. So it's just like navigating all of these things. And I would say that that's really been the focus of 501 Boost Free so far um, is really figuring out how to exist
Hmm.
with this new frame of mind and how to really to be a leader based on all of these things that you learned. We took a little bit of a side quest with with a mocktail article that was like for whatever reason that's the one that went viral, and it was
I
like it was
mean, that is so. I am not surprised though, because
yeah,
people talk, the mocktails, the sober curious, all of this stuff has been kind of a trend for a while. But boy, wow, you got a lot of people weighing in and responding in all
yeah,
sorts of ways to who knew mocktails could be so controversial.
right. And it was like mega controversial. It's
Yes.
the first time I've ever had to delete comments from a public LinkedIn post.
Oh, wild.
I had to turn off comments
Did
because
you
they just kept on
really?
coming in. I did.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that is so not me. Like, no, let's have an open dialogue. But
What are your thoughts on that? Why do you think that that one is the one that got people so like sparked so much vitriol and attention and all of the things?
yeah, my hypothesis is that number one, mocktails are divisive because it gets something moving in people's brains where it's like, well, why don't you just drink? Like that's always one response. Or, of course, I'm not going to pay money for that. It's just juice, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then I think what really got to people, and a lot of the comments I had to delete, was that I tied it back to hypercapitalism, late stage capitalism, whatever you want to call it, where like mocktails are a perfect example of how labor is devalued.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because, and as I pointed out in the article, like when you're a bartender that has a solid or program in your bar, it's sometimes more work than making actual cocktails because
It's not
you have
just
to
pouring juice.
you're
Right.
not just pouring juice.
Right.
You can't rely on alcohol to like build a really interesting flavor profile for one, so that you've got to like, make fresh juices. I hate to say juice after all that. But you also have to, like make infusions and macerate fresh ginger, like piles of fresh ginger. Like it takes
Yeah.
hours and hours and hours. And that doesn't count the workshopping a drink, just like you would a regular cocktail.
Yeah. P.S. By the way, if people like, if you've been drinking a couple of drinks, you don't even notice what a drink tastes like
Right.
anymore. When you're serving people who are completely sober and are able to distinguish between something that is high quality and something that is not, then you can't get sloppy. And so it's a totally different thing. And it does go back to the craftsmanship and the skill of somebody who's putting an effort into that. Obviously, I'm a pro, like pro skills person, and I love anything that's high quality, no matter what's in it. And
Right.
so anyway, yeah, no, it was really interesting to see that it generated such a large amount of commentary and feedback. So, I guess we're still talking about that particular project. How has that gone overall? Because it's more than just articles. You've got a whole concept behind what, you know, 501 Booze Free can do and what the future is. So where is that now?
So that has taken a bit of a back burner. I'm sure we'll get into it with ungovernable context, but
Yes.
I mean, ultimately, what I'd like to see for 501 Booze Free is a true community
Yeah.
where we have meetups at conferences. We have maybe not even a conference, but locally, if we have folks that just want to get together for booze free happy hours,
Hmm.
for networking, for community, and I will say the other vision I have for 501 Booze Free, even though it's in the title Booze Free, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be booze free to participate. It's a way for us to think about how we can be healthier,
Yeah.
really, at its core.
Yeah.
Uh, that could mean not drinking. That could mean dry January. That could mean maybe, hey, this weekend I'm just not going to have a drink. Maybe I'll try one of these mocktail recipes that Brian was talking about.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. It's just a way for us to really think about how we can be healthier, act with intention, and have a community to help support that.
Well, and so, and I love that because I think that especially in this industry, of associations, and I also think about the events, overlapping industries like in hospitality, the events industry. It is just sort of, you're always at events and there is always so much that is not healthy that's happening there, that it's nice to support people who are making these decisions
Yep.
so that we have our colleagues around us for longer and can live these healthier lives.
Yep.
On that note, living with intention, making these intentional choices, you did launch this other project, Ungovernable Context. I'm like being very, I'm self-aware, I'm self-conscious about even saying it because it's hard to say, ungovernable context. And you were super excited. I mean, this came from a burst of inspiration. All of a sudden I see logo, branding, da 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 da. So
I know.
what happened? Where did this come from? Where is it going? You obviously were lit on fire with this idea and had to
I
share it.
know.
So let's talk about this.
Yeah, like holy crap, if you told me that I was going to launch a newsletter like during our conversation in late December,
I
our initial
know.
conversation, I've been like, you're crazy, Kiki. You
It's
are
only
crazy.
March 24th as we're recording this, Brian. It was not that long ago that we
I
had the
know.
other one.
I
So,
know.
yes.
Yeah, that was honestly that if I had to sit down and tell you exactly where that inspiration came from, like I don't think I can recreate it. It almost felt like this divine intervention. Like I know that that's dramatic. It wasn't that dramatic,
If
but
somebody's listening to this, he just got this look of ick on his face, but it's okay because divine inspiration, it kind of gave off that vibe. It was like I could read the excitement in your posts about it. And I could also read the excitement in just how quickly all of this, like the branding and all of this stuff and the launch of it, I could tell you couldn't wait to tell people about it
yeah.
and you were excited to get it out there. So, what is it and why is it? And what has happened since you shared about it in the very beginning?
Yes, so I will start with the genesis. I think that even though I just joked about it, like if you would have told me I was going to start this during our conversation, I would have told you you're crazy. But I think that that was the beginning of the inspiration for it. Like you
Mm-hmm.
can take some credit for that, Kiki. Like
Me?
honestly,
No.
yes, yes,
I refuse.
because because that
No.
was so that really kicked off. Like you have to keep in mind before January of this year, 26, like no one knew that people knew that I was autistic and that I had
Mhm.
ADHD and that I was sober. But particularly the ADHD and the autism piece was that very few people knew. I kept that very close to the vest for years, 3 years, as a matter of fact. So I think whenever we had our conversation and I like finally unburdened that,
Mhm.
um, and then there was a follow-up post in early January where I went LinkedIn official and just said I have ADHD and I'm autistic. Um, so I think that plus, and I'll be perfectly honest with you, just some frustration. with the association world.
Hmm.
As I'm coming up on my 20-year anniversary in the association world, and just seeing us as an industry always doing the same things. Like we always have 3 to 5 year strategic plans that we as soon as they launch, like there are pieces that we find success with, there are pieces that drive us, but for the most part, like 75% of that document that's on our websites, we don't follow
Yeah.
because as soon as we launch it, it's large chunks of it are already irrelevant.
Mm. Hmm. Hmm.
So I think it was my frustration with a lot of that. Plus, like now that I'm out and loud and proud, my particular strain of autism. I hate to call it strain. That was a terrible way to say it, but my strain of autism is that I'm incredibly honest.
Yeah.
I don't pull punches, not in a disrespectful way, but just like, hey, we have this uncomfortable tension or something isn't working. Let's just figure it out and stop dancing around it. And for
Yes.
me, ungovernable context is the moment where I said, okay, we know that we're doing all of these things that don't work anymore. Plus, on top of that, we have organizations, and this isn't just associations, this is the entire world. We have organizations that are built for neurotypical brains.
Hmm.
Or and it's like, so as I started to write all of these individual articles, like this theme kept on coming up, and it was the system is screwed up, but we're blaming individuals for the screw ups of the system. So why don't we just call that out? And for me, this is boiling it down to its most simplistic point of view. But if I feel like we focus too much on content as associations, particularly ones that are constantly chasing that non-dues revenue rainbow,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
um, where it's the answer is always more content, more content, more content. But as an industry, what we're not doing is thinking about what context are we giving our members and our
Right.
customers. So that's really the focus of the newsletter in a long roundabout way is just we're taking a look at systems that are flawed, that are damaged, that are broken, and we're applying a neuro-inclusive lens on top of
Hmm.
that. And we're saying if we take a neurodivergent first approach to just about everything that we do, um, we're setting up systems that are better for everybody, not just for your neurodivergent employees. We're creating workplaces that are honest, that focus not so much on output. Output's important, but it's more how can we optimize our systems to ensure the best output.
Yeah. Yeah. I, you know, I find myself, I have this list of questions that I want to ask you going into this. And Things Go Sideways is definitely, it's a project that's not just focused on associations, but because of our shared history in associations, I feel like I just really want to go kind of deep on talking about what's happening in the industry right now um, because it's really important to me. And I think that when we're talking about ungovernable context, you are speaking directly to an issue where we have the power of associations is enormous. However, it's not being fully realized or recognized or even honored in many cases. And I think it's been like that for a long time. I was having a discussion with Tanya Muse earlier today. I don't get a chance to talk with her very often, and we'd set up some time to talk. And she asked me a question, and she said, what do you see as far as, trends and how things are changing in associations over the past 5 years? And I said, honestly, I don't think I'm seeing enough change in associations over the past 5 years. And
Oh yeah.
for so many reasons. But when you talk about ungovernable context and you talk about the importance of context compared to content, I think it would be really easy for people to try to poke holes in this and to say, yeah, but without content, that's one part of our value proposition and yada, yada, yada. But what I'm hearing and what I'm feeling is that, right now people are looking around and they are looking for things that actually make a difference. Does this make a difference in a way that is meaningful to me and my life and whatever it is that I am invested in, you
Yeah,
know? And there is so much that's happening politically in our society, just in about every technologically, in about every single way you can imagine, ecologically, you know,
right.
um,
All the
that,
ologies.
yeah, all of them that, and we have an association for practically everything. We're all getting impacted by this stuff. It seems ridiculous that this is not some sort of special golden age, where associations are helping people to realize what they can do at times like this. And yet
Yeah,
they're operating as if everything's normal. It's not. It's not
no,
normal. This is not a normal time. And what I see in what you're doing is basically saying, this is a sideways moment for associations. It's like, wake up, wake
yeah,
up. This is not business as usual. This is a time when you need to step in, and it actually is closer to why we were set up in the first place, is to
right.
step in and to try to organize and to, figure out how we're going to tackle big problems. And we don't see enough of that, I think. And there's definitely not enough of that sort of this is super important, this, sense of urgency that needs to be there.
Oh, absolutely. And, to respond to your, poking holes, which no one has done yet. Like, I'm really hoping we can get some people to come on to the,
You
to
want
some
them
of our
to.
articles. I
Yeah.
want
Please
poke
pay attention
holes
to
in
this.
things. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, just because these are really important conversations to have. And, going back to what you said about, people potentially saying, well, content is our entire value proposition. Like, I'm here to tell you, if that's your value prop, you're in trouble because your
Yeah.
value prop is dying.
Yeah.
We are, I mean, it started with social media. I mean, a bit of a tangent, but bear with me for a second
I'm
here.
good. I'm rolling with you, man. We're in it
All
to
right.
win it for this. Yeah.
For the listeners who did not know, I worked for ASAE for 8 years. And so my first stint there was for 6 years. I worked there from May 20, 2006 to like early 2012.
And for non-association people, this is the Association of Associations, the American Society
Yes.
of Association Executives. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. So I remember as a curious young person, with like my first couple of months there, I asked one of my supervisors, so who's our competition besides state association executive organizations? And the answer very clearly, this would have been like early 2007, was nobody. We have no competition, which at the time was kind of true. I think I think there was also a lack of recognition as to who the folks in the field were that were, also doing amazing stuff in addition to what we were doing. But it's kind of true. Like, we didn't have any true like really tough competition. But then that all changed when the iPhone launched later that year, just like that. And
Yeah.
then you had the iPhone, then you had the financial crisis of 2008, and then social media all happened. Think about that.
Hmm.
In like 2 years, iPhone, huge global financial crisis, and social media, like the world changed
Yeah.
overnight. And I remember, because I remember reading a lot of your comments. Like, there were times when I couldn't go to a conference, but I
Yeah.
could get onto Twitter
Yeah.
and I could figure out exactly what was happening in that session. I didn't have to pay to go to the conference because people were taking screenshots of those slides,
Yeah.
and we were having real conversations in real time about content. So that started to chip away at this idea of content as a value prop. But then, of course, now we have AI, and I can take an agenda for a conference that I want to go to. I can pop it in the chat GPT. I can tell it, give me full-fledged presentations for all of these sessions, and I'll have it in a minute.
Hmm.
Is it going to be accurate? Is it going to be the most valuable usage of that content? No, of course not. The real value is in going to the conference and connecting with like-minded people and people that I disagree with and having conversations. But if I'm looking at it for just an information, just purely information point of view,
Hmm.
I never have to go to another conference again.
Right.
So, and it's not only conferences, it's all of your products, every single one of your products. And, I'm not saying this to be a jerk, but it might come off that way. But if you're one of, because let me preface this by saying I came across this whenever I was a consultant. I listened to an association CEO say, we don't have time to build a course. Let's just put all of our publications that this course is about into ChatGPT and ask it to create the course outline for us. If you were one of those CEOs or one of those people that did that, you handed away your IP.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're continuing to do that, you're continuing to hand away your IP, your intellectual property.
And other
Stop doing
people's
that.
probably.
Yes, and other
You
people. So
know.
stop. Yeah. So, and that brings us to a place now where, we used to laugh at the accuracy of AI, but now it's really intensely valuable
Hmm.
because it's still going to have inaccuracies. It's still going to, screw things up. But the leap that we've seen in just the last 2 years is incredible.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
that's why I say your value prop is dead if you're continuing to focus on paywalls, on exclusivity, on access. You're dead in the water.
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, I'm it's strange because used to be a lot more engaged with talking about this stuff with the community because of association chat. And in just a short amount of time, it's only been since July of 2025 since that's been the case. But there's been so much that has happened and also that has not happened that needs to. It's happened in the industry. And it really concerns me a lot because I think that we're kind of lost, and
Yeah.
it's not just associations, it's a lot of organizations all over, different people in different situations, but especially in associations where we have a responsibility for bringing people together and for leading. I really think that I default to calling people who work in associations at every level leaders because the work is often what ends up leading the entire rest of the organization, that industry or that science or profession forward. And so it's hard for me not to think of anyone being in a leadership position just because they do work for an association or in the industry. So anyway, we're going down this rabbit hole and I don't care because I like it. And I think, Brian, that, I'm wondering if maybe we take this and just post it after this and to like Association Humans or something and invite people to join in the discussion or say what they need to say or whatever, because
Yeah.
I think it's really important. And I think that the work that you're doing and I think that what you're talking about is important to call out for that very reason, because um this is the time, if it's going to make, this is the time to make a difference. And by sitting on it, it is very, very dangerous. That
Yeah.
it's like not only are we losing that opportunity to lead and to help others in all these different areas, but we're losing the ability to sort of lead ourselves. I mean, I feel
Yeah.
it, you know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I think, it's something I think about a lot too, coming out of COVID. We learned so much from that experience about how to convene when we can't be together in person, right?
Yeah.
And it just, I think that that's related in this conversation because just at this moment where it feels like everything is not even shifting, everything like we're in an earthquake right now, where
Mhm.
everything is just up and down, and it feels like we're hiding in a doorway, waiting for the shaking to stop. That's what it feels like to me. And we had an opportunity with COVID in the midst of all this tragedy to rethink everything we've done. And we started to. But
Yeah.
then as soon as we had the ability to get back face to face, which for the record, I'm very glad that we can meet face to face again.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I'm not, but it's like we forgot all of these things that we learned. If you look at MCI, they're an association management company. They operate globally. For the folks that are unaware, they're a great organization. They put out several association benchmark studies, like right after the beginning of COVID, during COVID, in which they spelled out like all the things that we just talked about. Like we have learned so much, and we have learned new ways to interact with each other. We've learned that our members, like we've always known this, but now we have it, and like the numbers are right there. They want what MCI called the three C's. It's omni-channel, choice, and customization. And as we were starting to develop all of this virtual content just out of necessity because we couldn't get together face to face, which by the way, I was in the trenches building virtual conferences during COVID as a consultant. And,
Yeah.
you know, which shouldn't come as a surprise to a lot of association executives, is that most of the associations that I worked for had no virtual footprint outside of like your monthly webinar that was free
Yeah.
for members. They had very little going on. Then all of a sudden, within 2 years, we were all sitting on all of this content that could be repurposed a million ways from Sunday. But then we got the jab, and all of a sudden, it was safe to get back together. And I think one of the unspoken things from COVID as well is that our our sponsors were not happy because they weren't getting obviously the same engagement in the virtual expo floors, all that stuff, or even in sessions that were taking place virtually. So as soon as we had the opportunity as an industry to make our sponsors happy, that's exactly what we did. We went back to face, 100%. Forget virtual, forget hybrid. We're meeting in person again,
Yeah.
and that was such a blown opportunity.
Oh, I a lot of lost trust in that. I tell you
Yeah.
why, because everybody was really preaching up the ability that finally we were able to include people. We were using the word
Yes.
inclusive. We were able to include people who, for financial reasons or because they were caregivers in their house, they couldn't get away. For all these different reasons, they had not been able to participate before. So economic, for anything, all these different reasons.
Neurodivergence. I'm just,
Neurodivergence, yes,
yeah.
and it was like this kumbaya kind of moment. Isn't this great that this is the silver lining that we're able, look at this, the technology allows us to do this, and we're learning together and we're bringing people together. And the people who bought into it, which I did, I was like, yes, this is great. Everybody's able to, participate in some way, and it's just going to get better and better. Why wouldn't it? Um, like there was a lot of disappointment when we got the jab. We became vaccinated, and we couldn't wait to all come back together, except for the fact that there was this concern that if we took away these remote options to participate, that it would cannibalize the in-person meetings. And there had been such
Right.
a horrible, just devastating effect for so many associations on their revenue from not being able to have meetings, that they were like, oh, we need as many people as possible to attend. We need to make up for all of this loss. not without this long-term vision of what they were saying to everyone else who said, well,
Right.
wait, I thought you cared about us. I thought you cared about me being able to participate. I thought you cared about these people being able to participate. We have the technology available. Why can't we figure out how to include them somehow or include these people somehow? So there was that. Now we have, as of like yesterday or something, we have this new State of Associations report that comes out where we get to find out, well, how are associations doing? It came out from ASAE. I was looking through it, and I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at it
Not
or
yet.
not. So no surprise, like 39% of professional societies are saying that they they're seeing a decrease in, I think it's revenue.
Hmm.
But at any rate, they're not doing as well. There is a modest increase in trade associations. Without reading more deeply into it, I can guess that that has to do with the important role that advocacy is playing because of everything, all the drama that's
Right.
happening on Capitol Hill. But what I can tell you from that side of things is that because that is the focus, there's not a whole lot of focus on other parts of what the trade associations are doing because they are so actively, you know, doing that work. And so this question of how engaged, how much value, what are we doing as leaders in the association industry to be able to really be meaningful and to do meaningful things for our members is still very much present. It's still very much there. And I do feel like professional societies in particular, that are individual organizations, like I feel that we're losing ground,
Oh
even
yeah.
faster and faster. I'm really concerned about it.
I am too. And, to bring it back to ungovernable context, the most recent article I wrote, we tackle that
Mhm.
issue, specifically talking about what I envision could be a new role in a leadership suite for an
Yes.
association, which is that this is not going to be a surprise because it's ungovernable context, but the chief context
Context
officer.
officer, the chief context
The
officer.
chief
Yes.
context officer, yes. Someone who is just always there. Like their entire job is to be, I think I've referred to it as like a delightful curmudgeon. Like someone who is you love to work with and is not going to be like a complete pain in the ass, but they're there to be a pain in the ass basically for the association to like just the entire job of the context officer is to keep an ear to the ground
Yeah.
and to like truly, I know we talk about cross-functional work and it never really comes to fruition the way that we envision, but this is like the actual bridge between everything. They are the wheel and with all the spokes going out to different parts of the wheel to
Well,
say
yeah.
like, hey, this thing that we're not even thinking about, this big disruption could be, this could decimate us.
Well, and what
How
I
are we going
love
to
is
tackle
that
this?
this is from you, who you have spent so much time being the content guy and like to publicly
Yeah,
critique that model and to then say, like, oh, but we really need to start looking at this new position that would be so important. I think it's a bold claim. It's very you. And I love that you bring that up, and that you say,
yeah,
like, this is just the truth, guys. Like this is what we
right.
need to be looking at. Yeah. Not self-serving, by the way. You're
No.
not looking at this from a self-serving perspective. You're like, but we need this.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and that's the one thing that I'll add to it is that my tone in ungovernable context because it's ungovernable, it's challenging. It's I try to be provocative on purpose, and as I spell out in the first issue, it's not just to be a jerk.
Yeah.
Like I'm not doing this to say I told you so and wag my finger at you. It's the reason why I'm doing this is 100% altruistic. It's to just because this is the way that I see all of this going down, and it concerns the hell out of me.
You
And
realize we're making a very nerdy episode for
the nerdiest,
associations. No one
yeah,
else is going to care except for association people. But your mea culpa, you even have a mea culpa that you issue that I mean, I think which is really impressive because you're actually saying not only are you critiquing, but you're saying, hey, I've been part of the problem, like some of the
I'm
work.
I'm still
So
part of the problem.
yeah,
Like I make conferences for a living, and like
yeah,
we're trying to turn things around, but there's always I'm a perfect example of like, the another article that I wrote is the association context loop, which is as you can guess, the CEXO, or the chief context officer, would commandeer. Um, yeah, I'm still part of the problem. I admit it, and like we're trying to turn things around. Like I'm currently working on I'm going to say the words or the phrase strategic plan, even though I just trashed it a couple minutes ago. But we are working on a true, like, iterative,
yeah.
living strategic plan that changes year by year for our conferences. Like that is one of my goals to have wrapped up by the time we get to December of this year. And it's going to address a lot of the things that we talked about. Is that why are we building these agendas for conferences 4 to 5 months out, and then there is no other movement? And all these things happened, and they're going to turn into side or into hallway conversations that we aren't a part of, and
I
that's not good.
I noticed, one of my questions was going to be you've got two newsletters, these two projects, you're one person. And y- I noticed that you were going to take the weekend off. You
Yeah.
were like, hey, guys, I saw this online. Yeah, I read through your post and yeah, I don't know what's going to happen, like what I'm going to put on the Substack for next week. I don't know. I'm gonna take this break. But I also sense, and I could be off, but I also, you know, there's disappointment. There's right now, it's like I would say that there's like in the wave of, I don't know, momentum or excitement or something that
Hmm.
it's like that I I feel like at this point you're disappointed in people, like you're disappointed in where that there's not more that's happening right now with some of the stuff that you see that's really, really important. And, another one of my questions last time we talked, you closed by saying the future is empathy. And that felt weird to say that in a time that felt deeply unempathetic. It's been 3 months since then, a few months.
Yeah.
You've been writing about neuro-inclusive systems, about humanizing disruption. How do you feel about that right now? Like, am I wrong? Am I reading you wrong right now, or are you where are you right now? Like, what is going on with Brian?
That is a very deep question.
Yeah.
No, I would say I'm not frustrated, you know. Um, I still feel very, yeah, I still feel very, what's the word I'm looking for? Just optimistic about the ingenuity of, the drive of human beings. And I caught something that you said that I have to dispute a little bit,
Hmm.
slight little pushback, because you said, you're frustrated with people, or not frustrated, but you said the word people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd be lying if I said I'm never frustrated with people, but I would say 95% of the time my frustration is with systems.
Yeah. Okay.
That, and I think that that's one of the gifts that was given to me by sobriety, by my diagnoses, is that, because we talked about this, I think, a little bit or a lot in our last episode.
Yeah.
Um, whenever it's from 2015 through like almost I've been COVID, through 2020, like I was lost, I was broken. I had no idea what I was doing with my life. I thought that it was all kind of pointless because I thought that I was just completely unworthy of every accolade I had leading up to that moment, that I was a fraud, that all the typical stuff. But then with fortunately with time and with therapy, most importantly therapy, you start to realize I'm not always the problem. Like, sure, I have my faults and they manifest themselves in different ways, but like everything that I experienced for those 5 years was almost entirely a problem, a systemic problem. That
Hmm.
was working for places that weren't human, that weren't empathetic, that, didn't care that I was 3 months into sobriety and just trying to get by and not knowing what the hell I was doing.
I remember the Lord of the Flies. Yeah, the
Yes,
whole, yes, yes.
yes. And that was all systemic. Like there are one or two people in there that, it was truly a personality thing, but for like 99% of it, it was just I was working in broken systems. And so that's kind of my pledge now is, that's the altruism coming back is I'm not here to denigrate individual decisions that you're making. I'm here to talk about our broken systems and how we can fix
Okay, fair enough. I might have been projecting about my own feelings about being
them.
frustrated with people, to be fair. I think that maybe my read is perhaps sharing a little bit more about my own feelings than maybe what I'm picking up from yours. So, but yeah, I'm frustrated with systems too. I think that that's totally fair. I don't want to go too far over our time, but I did want to bring up something that I had noticed that had happened that I was curious about its impact on you and the work that you're doing. And that is, I had noticed that I lost, or that you lost your cousin, Sean,
Mhm,
recently. He was a school superintendent who, while fighting cancer, had secured $57 million dollars for his community's schools. You wrote about him in your newsletter and you shared one of his sayings, which was, make time for the little things. It's the only thing that matters. I want to give you the space, if you want it, to
yeah.
talk about what his life and his loss means to you right now, while you're in the middle of also building these things that you care so much about.
Yeah, I'm already starting to tear up if you can't tell. Yeah, that was a really, I mean, understatement of the year. That was a really tough loss. He was far too young. He was 58, with a rare case of lung cancer that, like, mostly it's only seen in young children.
Wow.
And here, a 57-year-old man came down with this incredibly rare form of cancer that he just couldn't, he couldn't fight any longer. Um, you know, when I think about Sean, I think about someone that always had everyone else in mind and not in a like a detrimental, I'm going to work myself into the ground and have nothing to show for it for myself, like and putting everyone else first. He did it in a way that was so effortless, where you he's one of those people where when you were in a room with him, it was sort of like the Obama thing where I've personally never had a conversation with Obama, but I've heard when you're in a room with Obama, you feel like you're the only person in the room.
Wow.
And he had that quality to him. Um, and yeah, when I think about the little things, he was so, and this is not a little thing, but when he was not in the school building, when he was just out in his hometown, and it was his hometown that he worked for. And that's to me always been very impressive that he was from this tiny rural town in Ohio, went off to college, and this is where part of the things go sideways. Like he went to college, he was a big high school quarterback, but then he got injured, and that was the end of his career. Well, not his career, but his school career. So he had to rethink everything, and he thought about like, what's the one thing that I love? And it's like I love my town and I love my school. So I'm gonna become an educator. I'm going to go back to my school and I'm going to be the best teacher I can possibly be. And then that turned into I'm going to be the best principal, which eventually turned into the best superintendent. And yeah, just to stop and think about that, how
Wow.
inspiring that is. And he always did it with a smile on his face, which is the even more impressive thing. Because I can't imagine being around 1,000 school kids and always having a smile on your face, but that's Sean. Um, or that was
That's
Sean.
that's getting me. I think that what a beautiful thing to know your true north so completely that you can recognize what you truly love like that and um to just embrace that, recognize that, have that clarity and to be able to lean into that so heavily. It allowed him to be able to do some remarkable things, raise a
Yeah.
remarkable amount of money in support of what he cared about. And um, I think that that's really inspirational. You know, I think about it as you're speaking and sharing about him. I'm thinking about, I'm actually thinking about how that relates to how I feel about the association industry and, even some thoughts I've been having recently about
Yeah.
where I'm going, where the future holds. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and I think, just to wrap it up, because I've thought about it in my career, just in the last week since we got the news, and
Yeah,
and it's made me think about where I am. I know that I said I'm doing fine, and 95% of me is doing fine, but there is the 5% that's just very frustrated with the association world. But his passing and reflecting on his life has really led me to this place now where it's like, I could be doing a better job bringing my full self to my not only my job but also to the industry, which I feel like for the last, I don't know, like probably 6 months, I've it's been tougher for me to log in at the beginning of the day, but just in the last week, just thinking about him, like that's not how Sean would operate in
wow.
this frame of mind. Like, not saying it's fixed overnight, but part of me is like, I just do the little things. That's really all it is. Just stop thinking about all the things that aren't being done. Just do what's in your control. Do the little things, and that's like kind of reset my thinking for now.
I think I needed this conversation today. This is a crazy. I, Anybody listening to this, heaven help you, because this is actually you just answered my last question, which was like, um, is there anything that you're genuinely still in the middle of figuring out,
Yeah,
Um, as part of this, everything this is about things going sideways, but usually I'm like, well, what would you tell somebody who's going through it? And this was about what are you still figuring out? And you just answered that for me. And I think I needed this. I actually this is a sideways episode. This is just
yes,
a little bit different. And I'm thankful for that. Um I think if anyone's listening to this right now, you must obviously be invested in the association industry. Um, I would think. If you're not and you're just interested, then great. That's good too. Apply that wherever you are. But for those of you who are listening who are maybe you're thinking, I've been frustrated too. Maybe you're thinking, yeah, I've been in this industry. I see what is possible and I also see what's not happening and I'm getting frustrated and I'm getting, you know, resentful or I'm losing faith in my ability to make the kind of impact that I need to make here. Um, Maybe we just keep I'm gonna have to cut that out.
That's fair. That's fair. Let's have a good cry.
Maybe we just keep trying,
Yeah,
you know? Maybe we just keep trying, guys.
that's really
Um,
all it is. I mean, if I'm not going to continue to try, then
yeah.
then find something else. And I'm not
Yeah,
ready to give up on associations.
right. We can do this. And there's so much more, so much more that can be done. And we haven't even gotten super creative with it yet. So,
Yeah,
you know, Brian, this is the weirdest, strangest podcast interview I think maybe I've ever done. And definitely for things go sideways, for sure. But I want to thank you for coming back. The whole reason was because we had our conversation, and I knew that so much had changed since we had our conversation. Ironically, I got the edited version of that just today that I'll be posting. But I think what I'll do is, I'll be sharing that along with this one so that people can see the companion piece
yeah,
for our people and be able to respond and share and maybe we can all just chime in where we can and support where we can. I think that you know I'm thankful that you're willing to sit in this conversation when the story isn't finished yet. And it's sometimes harder to do stuff like that, right? And
yeah,
so thank you for that. And as a reminder to everyone, we don't have to resolve it today. When things go sideways, that's when the real story begins. I'm Kiki L'Italian. Thanks for listening.